Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the Indian military siege in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Interestingly, the areas we'll be throwing light on include there's a report from the US State Department and the spokesperson, Mr. Ned Price, today, in fact, said that I would say that if we continue to support direct dialogue between India and Pakistan on issues of concern. Primarily, Americans again, they have urged the need for a peaceful dialogue. Further states the resolution of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir dispute is a key to move forward and its resolution is imperative for durable peace and stability in the region. Again stated by the US State Department's spokesperson, Mr. Ned Price. He further says that Pakistan suspended bilateral trade with India in August 2019, while New Delhi announced its decision to change Kashmir's status. Further says that Indian military is engaged in unabated extrajudicial killings of innocent Kashmiris in the fake encounters and staged cordon and search operations in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And a recent US State Department's annual report on human rights identified unlawful, arbitrary, and extrajudicial killings and disappearances as major issues in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So primarily these would be the areas of discussion today. And let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us Abid Latif Sindhu Saab, who is a senior analyst and a columnist. Sindhu Saab, thank you so much for your time, sir. And we'll also be talking to Shahid M.G. Kyani Saab. He's a former ambassador and a senior diplomat. Kyani Saab, pleasure to have you in the program, sir. Thank you so much for your time as well.
I'm honored.
And we'll also be talking to Kamran Yusuf Saab, who is a senior journalist, columnist, and an anchor person. And we'll be talking to him over the phone in a little while. But let me start off from you, Ambassador Saab, if you allow me, sir. So, number one, sir, this report which came out, and obviously the concern regarding what's going on in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir has been highlighted by the US State Department's spokesperson, Mr. Ned Price. Very categorically, he mentioned that one, he supported the idea of dialogue, and number two, the major important reason is that he's also talking about and he's recognized the real issue, and that is about the human rights violation. He says that as long as the problem in Kashmir is going to continue, we cannot expect durable peace and stability in the region. So, sir, significance again coming from the Americans. How do you see this statement, sir?
The thing is, well, the statement from the State Department is important, very significant, but the fact is, beyond these statements and press releases of the State Department and the United States government, nothing more is done. There has been an unprecedented human rights violation in Indian occupied Kashmir since 1989, not today. It has been aggravating, situation aggravated, and now the annexation of Indian occupied Kashmir into a US state and divided into two, Ladakh and then the Jammu and Kashmir. What has the United States done? Has the United States put some sanctions over India? Has it reduced its trade? Has it reduced to give its arms and ammunition and other significant what you call assistance? What about containing China? Its policies, that hasn't changed. You see, the United States double dealing has been there for the last many decades. You see, at one time they'd be talking about human rights violation and support of democracy. Other side, the whole of Latin America, which was dictatorial regimes, were supported by the United States, including in our own country. So I would only take it seriously if the United States, for example, summons the Indian ambassador in Washington, D.C. and calls him to the State Department, or the United Nations, the ambassador, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, reads out the human rights violation in Indian occupied Kashmir, which is a fact. That never happens. So what are we left with? The United States policy to just contain China and supporting India? This is what it is. Even though you said it in your own statement, the United States reiterates the human rights violation in Indian occupied Kashmir. Are we going to be content with only statements, or India is going to be pillaged and India is going to be, should be brought to the to the international public as what's happening. And if United States bring it to the public, international public, especially on the forum of United Nations, that will be the day, and India will take notice of it.
Now, coming to you, Colonel Sindhu, one important area. Today, I was reading a story. Rather, I was watching it in the television on CNN, and I learned that Joe Biden's administration has released a certain amount that was around $300 million for the Palestinians, which was earlier totally taken away during the Trump's administration. Now, Biden really talks about human rights. He has mentioned about Kashmir. He has mentioned about Palestinian issue. He has always been an ambassador of peace regarding that particular problem. Do you think Mr. Joe Biden, I'm not saying that he's going to take an absolute U-turn and start commenting against the Indians, but at some stage, I mean, one, coming from Ted Price, the spokesperson, obviously this is what the president has meant and has said and has allowed to be told to the media. And second thing is, sir, when you talk about the overall issue, Palestinians are being looked after even at a smaller level, but during this administration, issue of Kashmir could be raised at some stage. I'm not talking about the plebiscite or otherwise. I'm talking about the human rights problem primarily. Your take, Sidhu Saab.
Yeah, Faisal, actually, there is a difference between the expectations, interest, and then the shared objectives. And states actually, more or less, as we know, that they play on their own interest. Kashmir issue, once we talk of Kashmir issue, usually the American interests, I won't say that automatically, but by default, these over a period of time has aligned with India. And at the present moment, due to the rising China, and as the China has, challenged the global order, so India is by default, or I would say that by design, is almost has become a main ally or the regional, I would say, the watchdog of the US policy. And Kashmir, as far as you draw a comparison between Kashmir or Palestine, or the Israeli or the Palestine cause, there are parallels, but as far as the diplomacy is concerned or the diplomatic effort is concerned, the wherewithal or the diplomatic threshold which is required to raise the question of Kashmir internationally, globally, regionally, and to make a point that Kashmir is, although it being an unfinished cause of concern for the nuclear armed subcontinent, I think that requires a lot of effort, not in terms of only the diplomacy, but in terms of international politics, and particularly in the field and in the area where we are able to make US realize that only playing jaw and just giving the statements without any measures, without any concrete efforts is not going to take us anywhere. And the more we give an extension, or more we give the more we are indulged into mere rhetorics, the problem of Kashmir is going to stay there, and it will destabilize the region, as a matter of fact.
This is another point, and that is regarding the Afghan issue. Do you think Afghan issue indirectly or directly perhaps is related to Kashmir issue also? Because over there, Indians are stakeholders, as well as Pakistan, as well as China. Same the case is in Afghanistan. Do you think these two are related somehow or the other, sir? Because peace, obviously, even if Afghan issue is sorted out, if Kashmir issue is not, problem is going to remain there. So both these issues need equal importance and equal kind of support from the Americans also.
Yeah, absolutely. This seems to be a jigsaw puzzle which has the two pendulums. One is the Afghan issue and the other is the Kashmir issue. And the regional stability, you cannot have a regional stability without solving the Afghan issue, which is also linked to the Kashmir, because now the players, the regional players which are going to be there to solve the Afghan issue are the same which are going to be there if we want to talk or we want to resolve the Kashmir. And for the first time, as you know, that the Afghan peace deal is in the process, and The May 1st was the day and was the date in which the US was to withdraw its troops from Afghanistan. But US is now circumventing the catch-22 in Afghanistan by giving two options. One is to have an extension in the date from 1st May to maybe 2-3 months ahead. And the other is that it is trying to give a proposal for a new peace plan. If the same is exercised, and it can be exercised in Afghanistan, why can't a strategy, same type of a strategy or a cue can be had from Afghanistan to solve the Kashmir issue? And as many regional players, now Afghanistan, Russia has also jumped in. You know that just a day before, even Russian foreign minister was here. He was talking on all the matters and all the issues related to the peace process, the friendship, the military cooperation between Pakistan and Russia. And General Mackenzie was also there a few days back. The Afghan foreign minister was here. The minister of Qatar was also here. So a lot of diplomatic effort is going on. So this speaks and this shows the interest of the international, I would say, the polity in solving the Afghan issue, as it affects and it matters a lot. I say that even Kashmir is far important and far deep issue which has to be solved, even solving the Afghan issue, even before solving the Afghan issue, only then the stability in the region will be had. And the emerging, the polarity in the region in which China has emerged as one of the power, and we are already draw down on the northern area of China and India, in which the Ladakh and all the troops are there. So if that is the case, I think that is even Kashmir is more important to be solved. But if the Constitution of the India is revoked, the Article 370 and the 350A, and India expects, or the Modi expects, that one can talk Kashmir in this environment and under these circumstances and the overarching constitutional misdemeanor of India, then I think it is not possible. We can only have a ceasefire on the frontiers. We can only have the ceasefire on LOC. But beyond that, I think it is very difficult to walk over this line.
All right. Now, coming back to you, Ambassador Saab, three important areas. One is regarding the trade issue. Bilateral trade between Pakistan and India, it hardly exists, sir. And then there is a lot of confusion, a lot of trust deficit. You don't even know when the borders would be closed. So there are very genuine problems as far as the traders are concerned. Even in 2019, after the abrogation of Article 370, you remember Pakistan suspended those ties with the Indians. Even recently, there was this meeting held, and we were pretty confused whether we will be doing trade or not. But later on, we got to know that we won't be importing any yarn or any sugar from the Indians. So primarily, that was a cabinet decision, sir. But a lot of people do believe that trade should be kept aside, just like the issue between Taiwan and China does exist. But look at the overall volume of trade, $150 billion. You talk about India and China again. They have the border dispute, but look at their trade volume. You talk about India and perhaps other neighboring countries where they have issues. Why can't Pakistan do that, sir? Do you think this is the right approach, or trade should be treated separately and the political issues or the diplomatic issues should be treated separately? So your take, Ambassador Saab.
First of all, let me just make a comment. You are saying that Afghanistan and Kashmir, the issues are common. No, I don't think so. They are two totally different things.
Okay, let's comment on that first. All right.
I'm just one liner.
Please,
Afghanistan, the Taliban have fought and got themselves recognized by the United States. They were being considered as terrorists, and today they sit on the table across the United States as equal partners and try to resolve this issue. How long would it take? I do not know, but the Taliban have the upper hand in this whole negotiations. Unfortunately, the Kashmiris their blood has been, you look at how long have they been fighting for the last many. The United States hardly acknowledges those people who have fought this thing. The other thing is, Article 370 is an Indian local matter, internal matter. They consider it part and parcel of India, but they've given them a special dispensation. What we need to do is we need to continue to support two things: the United Nations decision for to holding a plebiscite and the human rights violation. Revoking and unrevoking is hardly matters. It doesn't matter. Indians have never said it's a dispute. So this thing we need to come back. Second thing you're talking about, yes,
That was about trade, sir.
Yeah, yes, I'm coming to Pakistan, India. Please let us go back now to next just 10, 12 days back when the Prime Minister of Pakistan and Chief of Army Staff spoke at the Islamabad dialogue. It is an extremely important the speech of the Chief of Army Staff, extremely important, in which he laid down the whole format as to how Pakistan India is going to go. And there has been a number of articles in all the mainstream English newspapers in which they said the back channel has been opened. Extremely good. The reason is, as you said about China India, the tyranny of geography is such that states like India and China have understood the importance of coexistence. Here, Pakistan and India have to understand they have fought 3-4 wars. They have to coexist. Yes, the issue of Kashmir has to be resolved. Whenever we sit down across the table, have to resolve. Now, the thing is, for the last now, maybe 2-3 years, we are in an incommunicado state. People, believe it or not, globally, people laugh at us, at both these countries. How these countries, which have more than 1,000 miles of border, they are unable to understand the importance of coexistence. No people-to-people contact, no trade, no sporting links, no cultural links. What on earth are we doing? How can we resolve this issue? All the issues which are between Pakistan and India have to be resolved sitting across the table. It was extremely important for the LOC to go silent. And then the Chief of Army Staff and the Prime Minister saying that whatever has happened in the past remain in the past. We need to look in the future. These are important things. Yes, why not trade? You see, the Ministry of Commerce. Unfortunately, there was very poor coordination between the ministries, and that is created problem for the federal government in Islamabad. Yes, why not trade? People-to-people contact trade. Let these issues, the important issues of Kashmir, can never be sidelined. And never be sidelined in the last many years. Okay, this has been an issue which has failed to be resolved, but will be resolved. But we have to have trade. We have to have people-to-people contact. We have to have sporting links. These are important. We cannot, you see, the tyranny of geography, as I said to you, the coexistence of these two countries require the leadership and the people-to-people contact have to be there. We have to start talking to each other. We cannot live in incommunicado. This is not the world in which, and now the leadership, military and political leadership, has spoken out, and you had, small, as you said, baby steps have been taken, like the LOC, then they start going silent, then the exchange of messages between the two countries. So these are important. And then when the foreign minister went to the Tajikistan, both the countries, the foreign ministers did not, accuse each other of anything. They just came back silent. So these are positive developments. And I must say, why not trade links? Why not? Meaning, I do not see why not.
Faisal, I want to add a word, if you allow.
All right, sir. We have also been joined in by Kamran Yusuf Saab. He is a senior anchor person, senior journalist, columnist. Kamran, assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for taking your time out and talking to PTV World.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Kamran, first of all, since we were talking about the statement issued by Ted Price, the US spokesperson, what he said categorically about he appreciated the fact that Pakistan and Indians, they might resume this dialogue at some stage, and serious issues of concern should be addressed. Now, the most issue which needs to be addressed is about the Kashmir issue. And currently, sir, whatever is happening out there is not at all, something which is tolerable by any means. People are being killed, being shot, being kidnapped, women being raped. We all understand. There's a long list of whatever is going on. But since the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, things have drastically changed, and then the demographic changes on top, and then the issuance of the licenses, and so on and so forth. Now the Indians can purchase property there as well. So these basic fundamental changes that are taking place rapidly is the prime concern of Pakistan. First of all, sir, your take regarding the statement issued by the US State Department's spokesperson, and then on the current problem which we are talking about.
Well, as far as the U.S. Statement is concerned, this is not something new. This is their stated position. No matter which government is in charge there in the White House, they publicly used to say the same thing, that they encourage both Pakistan and India to hold dialogue and resolve all outstanding issues, including the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. So this is something that we have to see in that context as well as the overall situation that you are talking about. You are absolutely right that Pakistan has never shied away from talks, and this has been our stated position. But since August 5, 2019, India took unilateral action abrogating Article 370, and that created a lot of problems. But at the end of the day, I think when we say that talks are the only way forward, for that, of course, that certain conditions have to be created. We have seen that Pakistan is saying that India has to create enabling environment, and that enabling environment, I believe, is to deal with that particular issue, because Pakistan has been saying it is not just because historically Pakistan is not concerned about Article 370. What my sense is that I spoke to people in the Foreign Office. Our concern is the demographic changes. That is the main concern. So what Pakistan is saying, that India should not resort to any steps that change the demography. So if, for example, the Modi government takes certain actions, that discourages, demographic changes there, and also to an extent improve the human rights situation, and also lift, siege, release political prisoners, that may create certain, enabling environment, that then push Pakistan and India to hold more meaningful dialogue. But of course, that this is a very complicated issue, and we have been getting reports that both sides probably been talking to each other through back channels to create the right kind of environment. But at this stage, I think the situation is very complex, because both sides also need to take care of their domestic audiences when they deal with this particular issue.
So you can't take those popular or unpopular decisions primarily because of the public pressure. Now, Kamran, another point. I mean, I'll give you three examples. One is a very recent one. I'm sure you must be aware of the fact that the aid package that was earlier stopped during the Trump administration has been given to the Palestinians, and that has been done by none other than Mr. Joe Biden, number one. Number two, when you talk about the recent visit of Mr. Sergei Lavrov, I mean, he was in India and then later on a 2-day official visit to Pakistan. He did not talk about Kashmir, but I'm sure this issue must have been talked about at some stage inside the rooms. But publicly, he did talk about the Palestinian issue. China has always again supported Kashmir as well as Palestinian. Now, the Palestinian issue seems to be, getting the highlight now, and interestingly, regarding the human rights. So do you think that would also pave some sort of way, put some sort of a pressure on the Indians regarding the human rights issue in Kashmir, sir?
I think it should. And one of the reasons that India, it appears that now willing to re-engage with Pakistan, because they know, despite the fact that US and India have strategic partnership, but given the fact that Joe Biden and the Democrats have always been concerned about the human rights situation, so they probably, aware of this fact. And as you mentioned, that the Biden administration, restored the aid to the Palestinian, that shows their concern to, the human rights, despite the fact that they also have, good relations with Israel. So this is also one of the factors that some people say, that if we apparently see some level of reduction in tensions between India and Pakistan, because India somehow is trying to preempt, the Biden administration. But again, I think we should also be mindful of the fact that the Biden administration may not go beyond certain point. The reason is obvious because they have a larger strategic reasons. They want India on their side because they want to stop the rise of China. So we should not pin great hopes with the Biden administration. And don't forget that, and this is also kind of surprising for me. I thought that the Biden administration would be more sensitive to Pakistan's concern, but it appears that so far, Biden administration is somehow ignoring Pakistan. We were not invited to this climate change summit. John Kerry skipped Islamabad's tour while he was in India, UAE, and Bangladesh. So the Biden administration is
And
also not giving very
what could be the
positive
reason for that,
signals.
Kamran Yusuf? Was that a deliberate decision to ignore Pakistan? Because if you look at the climate issue, sir, I think Pakistan is among the top 6 countries which will eventually, or which is actually facing this global warming and climate change issue.
Yes, I think it is deliberate, and it is quite surprising because we thought that Biden administration, he is a veteran, he remains the head of the Foreign Relations Committee, he knows Pakistan quite well. So whatever concerns his administration might have, he would have reached out to Pakistan. But somehow it appears that the U.S. administration is deliberately ignoring Pakistan. Some people say that it has to do with China. Through these tough messages, the Biden administration is trying to tell Pakistan to stay away from China. That could be the reason. But I think if this was their approach, I'm afraid this may push Pakistan more closer to China if the Biden administration ignores Pakistan like this.
All right. Thank you so much, Kamran, for your comments. Pleasure to have you, sir. Now, coming back to you, Abid Latif Saab, a couple of points here. A, you wanted to say something. I want you to please carry on, continue.
Yeah, with due respect, I want to differ with the Ambassador Saab and Kamran Saab on 2 issues. One is that the Article 370, it does not affect the cause of the Kashmir, in a very wholesome way. I would say that the biggest existential threat to India is Modi itself, and it is not because that he is very belligerent with the neighbors or he is pursuing sort of a Dr. No type of a policy, but because of the reason that he is challenging and has launched a frontal war, a frontal attack against the Indian Constitution itself. So if piece by piece, those articles of the Indian Constitution, may it be the First Amendment, may it be the 19th, Article 19 of the Indian Constitution, or Article 370 or 35A, if these type of articles are revoked, then it will definitely change the secular hue of the Indian Constitution, and it will become a Hinduvatva and a very fundamentalist and a fascist state. So in my point of view, I think that these articles, because this is a constitutional war and it's a legal war through which Modi is also trying to change the status of Kashmir. The second thing is that Afghan, as Ambassador Saab has said, that Afghan and Kashmir is a different issue. He is absolutely right. But the thing the country which is the pivot as far as the solution of both of the problems of the world, in which this political rigmarole has dragged the region for last so many decades, is Pakistan. And for Pakistan, solving Afghanistan and not solving Kashmir, I think it is a question which is loop-sided. And the third thing, I totally agree with Ambassador Saab that trade is very important. Trade is not a sellout on Kashmir. We have to understand that trade is the generic right of every human being, every country, and every entity, and particularly with the neighbor. And already once before 2019, once the Modi has revoked the status of most favored nation to Pakistan, our trade was around 3 million formal trade, 2.7 or 2.8 billion, sorry.
Yeah.
And the informal trade which we had with India was
Well, three
over
times more.
3.5 billion. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was over 3.5 billion through Singapore, through Thailand, through Dubai.
Dubai, yeah.
So, yeah. And you know that right now we are facing a very critical crisis of cotton. We require to have about 19 million bales of cotton to so that our factories in Lahore and Faisalabad and Karachi should run. But we have only produced around 8 million bales. So the deficit of 10 billion bales is actually costing us the international orders. So why can't we have the same cotton from just across Lahore, from Amritsar, and at a very cheap rate, affordable rate, and run our factories? There's so many other things. India is now a very is a coming up industry in medicine, in molecular biology, in pesticides, in agriculture research. We have the same type of land. This part of the Punjab, that part of Punjab and Haryana. So why can't we benefit? And Kashmir and trade should be separated. There is not a sellout. We are already had been doing trade with India since since decades. So I think approaching Kashmir directly is not possible. We have to take a leeway. We have to have a circumvention where we reach Kashmir through little small baby steps. That I wanted to say.
Now, Ambassador Saab, two important areas. And interestingly, when we talk about the stated position of India on Kashmir or the stated position of Pakistan on this particular issue, recent development was when India, in their official maps, not only included the AJK, but also included Gilgit-Baltistan. And we all very much hated it. A few days after we announced our own map, official map, and all the media channels and everybody else was told that this is going to be the stated position and this is going to be the official map. Now, again, the difference hasn't been contained. It multiplied many folds again. Now, sir, looking at the current situation of Kashmir, it seems that if the Modi policies, they continue, and he is here for at least another 2.5, 3 years perhaps, the kind of influence he is enjoying, no matter what is happening, no matter the kind of poverty that is on a rise there, there are a lot of domestic issues which India is actually confronting at the moment. But having said that, the way the demographics are changing, the way I was told that the way they are looking after the COVID patients inside Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that is also of prime concern, and so forth. Another 3 years, sir, a lot would be changed, a lot definitely will be changed, because this is what Modi's design is all about. And if BJP is elected again, God knows what would be the status of Kashmir, say, after 7, 8, 9 years, because now things are changing and things are changing rapidly, Ambassador Saab. Your take, sir.
First of all, please try to see that Modi is facing serious problems within the country and on his borders. First, let me talk to you the China-India standoff, which was about 8 to 9 months, was a repeat of the same blunder the Indians had did in 1962, reaching towards October 1962. They delayed the demarcation, they delayed the talks, and dilly-dallied with this thing. And a man of the stature of Prime Minister Nehru was a stalwart, independent stalwart. And he was somebody who did not understand, blundered, and what they faced. It impacted on Prime Minister Nehru's health. His daughter has stated publicly that he blundered, he didn't understand. Here, Modi did the same. If you look at the death of the colonel and his other 10 soldiers, they died. They misunderstood the Chinese, that they do not negotiate on the issue of sovereignty. And they created a problem. This is something which there has been serious criticism even within the army and the senior retired officers in India as to what they have done. So this has been a very serious impact on the morale of the Indian army and within the BJP party as what they have done. And within India, what they have created serious problem with the minorities, first with the Muslims. Forget about the Kashmir at the moment, with the Muslim minorities, and then what happened to the farmers, and the problem they have, they did not handle the COVID the issue also in the manner which was required. It's a huge country, so all these problems have forced, and then the way they revoked Article 370 and the way what they did, it is not working well, even in the Indian occupied Kashmir. What they had planned, it has not been welcomed. And now, if you look at that, the one by one, the LOC going silent and the messages, all these things are pointing towards India mellowing down, trying to reach out to Pakistan, and Modi is trying to secure its own place because there has been criticism within his own party at his leadership. You're talking about 2.5, 3 years. I'm looking at an early election within India. Modi is somebody who understands that he cannot carry what these problems are, external and internal problem, another 2.5 and 3 years. There is a large possibility that Modi might call election in the next 1 year to regain his position. Would he be challenged within his own party is something which at this time it is very difficult to say. Please try to see that the opposition in India is very, very weak. The Congress party
That is another problem. Yeah, you're right. They hardly, there's any number. Yeah.
Hardly exists. If the opposition is weak, there is no challenge to this government, then they might have a easy sail. But within the party itself, there have been criticism of Modi's handling of the foreign policy and within the own government. But
now, Ambassador, one more point. I mean, when we say that the LOC, the line of control, is going silent, again, a couple of other developments include a tweet by Narendra Modi regarding the health of our Prime Minister when he was suffering from corona. And even after that, on the 23rd of March. So, I mean, obviously it's an SOP. As an ambassador, you know what sort of a value it holds, but everybody took it very positively in Pakistan. Yes. We all thought that, this could be, a great way forward as far as the normalization of the, of the engagement is concerned. But what I'm saying is, sir, that when you look at that kind of an approach, and right after that, Pakistani cabinet committee, and rather the cabinet in fact announced that we'll be importing wheat and cotton from India, and suddenly the answer was no right after one day. My point is, sir, that I mean, no doubt they extended a branch of olives, but don't you think we should have accepted it? And that could have been the first way forward, because the way Indian media exploited the decision of Pakistan, earlier they were talking, oh wow, the business and the trade would resume, but later on it was a no from the Pakistani side, which they exploited. That's what I'm saying.
First, let me say to you, these messages on Independence Day are routine messages. But a message coming from an adversary with which we have not been talking for the last 3 years is extremely important. The tweet, then the message, even though it's a very brief letter from Prime Minister Modi and then our Prime Minister's response, these are important developments. And then no criticism of our decision to rescind that the trade with India. There were no criticism from India publicly. Therefore, I would say we are on the right path, but baby steps. I think there was poor coordination within the ministries, and I'm looking at some sort of a way out of this maybe in the next few weeks, because let me go back again to you, sir, that the speech of the Chief of Army Staff and the Prime Minister at the Islamabad dialogue cannot be taken. There has been a lot of thinking going, and then as the back channel they have been opened, and they understand the importance of coexistence. So these are minor issues, and I'm sure this will be sorted out in the larger interest. And I said, as the Sindhu Saab was saying, you see the deficit between what the cotton and what we need for our exports. So I think a way out will be found, because why would you import some cotton somewhere from XYZ country and increase the price for the value added? Why should they do that? So I think India is a place, and India also needs our goods also. You see, so why not talk? Why not engage? And then the serious issue, the serious issues are on the top of it. The Kashmir, that has to be tackled. But it can only be tackled once you are talking to each other on these people-to-people contract, trade, sporting links, others. When these things are there, then the atmosphere the environment is created within the two countries, as you said very rightly, that the domestic opinion has to be taken into account. When these things happen, when people look at, okay, they are talking to each other, okay, let them also sort it out. If you remember General Musharraf's 4-point,
Agenda, yeah.
the way he was about to resolve the Kashmir issue, what happened? They were the sporting links and they were encouraged, they were allowed. Okay, let me talk. So this is, sir, these are logical steps taken by people who have understand the
Sir,
state.
again, it was Vajpayee's government and Mr. Advani played a very negative role. That's what we learned. I still remember Kasuri Saab was almost, about to
Yes,
announce
in his book,
the
yeah.
future of
Sir,
Kashmir. But it did not happen. It did not happen because, you're a diplomat, sir. You know about the importance of commas and full stops, and that is where the Indians confuse you. And I've seen it with my own eyes happening. So,
sir,
Ambassador Saab, it doesn't work like that,
Sir,
unfortunately.
the thing is, first of all, you have to put your own house in order, sir. It's extremely important. You draw your strength from your domestic, what's happening within the country, sir. You sorted out this issue. Yeah, if you look at the Islamabad dialogue, also this was touched upon. It's very, very important. You have to stand. And sir, very important issue is all these issues need to be discussed with the opposition and the government in the parliament, sir. From where you will draw your strength, not on the road, sir. These things are not discussed on the road. These are very serious issues, and unanimity has to be created within the parliament on these extremely important issues, and then a way forward will be found. And therefore, then after that, I'll tell you what happened. Nobody will criticize. Neither the government, neither the opposition will be criticizing each other because they had discussed a threadbare in the parliament. This happens all over the world.
And I think that's a very important reason that I've never heard the entire opposition and the government being on the same page regarding good, important issues that are very, very important for the public and for the masses. But unfortunately, their own issues, they have become the real deal in which they have to, look after their own affairs and kind of, approach each other in order to save themselves, and get away from these corruption charges. But anyway, coming back to you, Sindhu Saab, one important area. And interestingly, I would like your comment on that because that is very important. This Quad concept, Australia, Japan, India, and you're talking about the Americans. I mean, the Americans, they have their strategic approach. They have great relationship with the Indians. No matter what we say, the way we look at it, India, I mean, other countries look at it from a very different approach, from a very different angle. Question here, sir, is that this SCO, India is a part of SCO, and then Quad, India is a part of Quad. Where do you see, I mean, let me put this question in the right words, that how will India move forward, keeping one foot in one boat and the other in the Quad?
Yeah, I think Modi is flying very close to the sun, and he hurt his wings. And as far as the Quad is concerned, Modi is being a very active member of whatever is going on in Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. Modi has actually raised up the ante for his own survival. And as I have already said, that domestically Modi has become a monster which is being fed on his own flesh, and that flesh is the secularity of the Indian state. And this, the making a balance or playing a prisoner's dilemma in having a balance with SCO and Quad, it is, I think, very difficult, and it is not possible for an Indian state to balance itself internationally in the equilibrium and also to have a balance, as Ambassador Saab was saying, that he is seeing a election or there is a political change or at least a political turmoil in India very soon. I also perceive that things even domestically and internationally are not going on a smooth sail for India. Now the Quad, as far as the outreach of the concept of the Quad is concerned, these four states, the Australia, Japan, India, USA, these four states, these are the primarily states which have their influence and which have their interest in the Pacific Ocean. And China is also a rising power which has equal interest in the Pacific Ocean and also the Indian Ocean. So, just trying to reach a place where you can challenge China in Pacific Ocean and not have the repercussions in Indian Ocean, I think that's not a very plausible situation. And India will have to face the music in Indian Ocean once the Chinese naval power and through the allies, the emerging allies, the naval allies of China in the Indian Ocean and this part of
Earlier, there was this huge one about a month ago, if I'm not wrong. But anyway, thank you so much, Ambassador Saab, for your time, as well as Colonel Sindhu and also Kamran Yusuf Saab. So that's all we have for this. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.